Predators who have been on a reality TV show such as Hardcore Porn or Pimp My Ride or Pawn Stars. How fake was it?
Several years ago, my cousin went in for a tattoo at the shop from Inked, the one in Vegas. It was an off-filming day, so none of the artists from the show were in. He got his tattoo started, and they asked him to come back in a few weeks when it was healed up to schedule an appointment to finish it. When he showed up, filming for the season was finished. The shop was closed, cleaned out, and the space was for sale.
I was on Jerry Springer. The episode never aired, but the entire thing was fake. They even asked me to find friends to complete the storyline of a double love triangle. Coolest part of it all was when they literally asked me if I wanted a fake doctor's note or a fake death certificate made out in a fake family member's name in order to get me out of work. They literally had a guy on staff whose only job was to get people out of work so they could attend filming.
I was on This Morning when I was about 7, and they did a big makeover for me and my siblings. The premise they created was that we were a nightmare and my poor mum just wanted us to look smart for an upcoming christening. The main part one remember was them telling us to jump in the mud and shout no when our mum asked us to stop. Normally we wouldn't have dared, so I remember that being fun. Oh, and my sister ruined her hair 3 times before going on stage, so they made us hold her hand so she couldn't touch it.
I was on Cops. It's pretty real.
I actually have 3. A friend of mine was on The Bachelor. This was years ago, and she ended up being one of the last 4 girls. She said they were constantly fed alcohol, were put on a strict sleep schedule where they were literally put to bed and woken up. Also, there were no clocks anywhere, so all the girls were in the constant state of alcohol-fueled disorientation. There were no chance encounters where the guy is sitting on the couch and the girl goes up to talk to him. All of that is staged. Even their conversations were reshot over and over if the reactions weren't right or their wording was off. The entire thing was completely controlled, and she said no one really knew the guy because none of their interactions were real. A friend of mine's house was on House Hunters. He wasn't on the show himself, but his house was the one that was picked. And yes, it was sold and all the paperwork was signed before they filmed. He was there when they filmed all the segments but wasn't allowed to be on camera. My wife was on America's Got Talent. She was a dancer for her friend's act. She said they lived in a tent for 4 days in the parking lot. She had a very positive experience. She said she met a lot of cool people and that it did feel genuine for the one episode she was on. Her friend made it through that round but got eliminated the following week.
I was on Stan Lee's Superhumans. Long shoot day at the high altitude chamber I worked at. They brought a guy who had climbed Mount Everest a bunch of times without supplemental oxygen, 29,000 feet, so we brought him to the same altitude in the chamber with some Westerners to compare against. He asked for oxygen after 15 minutes, and after 30 they asked me to pretend to pass out. Looking back at what aired, it's obvious to me I was faking. The way they edited the show, he does win the competition. Season 2. Spider-Man is the episode title. Edit for spelling.
My uncle was on Pawn Stars attempting to sell something. The item wasn't even his. He knew a guy who worked on the show.
In Holland there was a Dutch version of Pimp My Ride. A player of a football team we played against had his car pimped. The car didn't even make it home. He had to call the car repair service on his way back from the studio.
I was on an Australian reality called Surprise Chef. The premise of the show was that the celebrity chef would meet someone at the supermarket and then cook dinner for them. On my episode, one volunteered at an aquarium. The story in this episode was the chef met my boss at the supermarket, then cooked all the aquarium volunteers a nice surprise dinner. Of course, this was all pre-arranged. There was no meeting by chance. We all knew what was happening, so for the scene we all got surprised in the Shark Tank. We knew what was happening and did 7 takes of fake surprise. The celebrity chef cooked nothing. He went in for a few takes and an actual chef cooked all the food while the CC stood outside chain smoking. The food was average, basic local RSL quality, chicken parmy and profiteroles. I think I drew the short straw of things you get in a reality show, a shitty meal. Others get like cars or renovation makeovers. Edit, spelling. When my wife and I were looking to buy a home in Michigan, our agent told us we had the opportunity to be on House Hunters if we wanted to. We talked to some person from the show, and they told us the basic process. We'd buy whatever home we wanted, then they would film us there before we moved in, as though we were just looking at the place as well as looking at 2 other prospective places that they had selected. Then we'd ultimately choose the house we'd already bought and live happily ever after. We watched a few episodes, or I did. My wife already liked the show, and I convinced my wife of how stupid they would likely make us look, so we passed.
My mate was on Tattoo Fixers. If you don't know what it is, basically they get people in with tattoos they regret and make a design they don't tell them about, tattoo it on and cover the old one up and surprise them at the end. He filmed the big surprise reveal like 5 times because he wasn't surprised enough.
My brother was on X Factor UK. There are several rounds before the televised rounds, so all those rubbish acts you see on TV have been picked by producers to go through. I've also been in the audience of The Voice and X Factor, and they make you do loads of fake cheering, dancing and clapping before the show starts so they can cut it into the actual show. 90% of the cheering you see, here on the televised shows have been added in post-production.
I was on a European version of Survivor, where we went to an island and had to survive for 2 weeks. Whatever was seen on camera was what actually happening. The only fake thing is that we got some food to maintain a somewhat healthy diet.
Worked on Love It or List It. The reactions at the time of the reveal of the house were meant to be real, and they actually sign a contract saying they won't go in the house before renovations are complete. 99% of the work isn't done by the people shown doing the work on TV. It's done by subcontractors. The entire staff works until 1 or 2 a.m. the night before filming to get the house ready. Most of the stuff they put in for design purposes was taken back after the shoot because it wasn't part of the homeowner's budget. We got blacklisted from several stores because we would buy thousands of dollars of stuff and take it back after we shot.
My cousin was involved in filming for The Bachelor, not a contestant, and said they film many scenes in several different ways. For example, they might film them cuddling while walking and then walking while looking annoyed and so on. Not that fake, but yeah.
I was on an episode of Wife Swap. One of the wives was a burlesque dancer, so her new husband had to MC a variety show of which she was the headliner. I was the juggler in that act. Full disclosure, I'm pretty sure all tape with me on it is on the cutting room floor. Anywho, pretty darn fake. The people are real, and lots of their interactions are real. But a ton of scenarios are staged. Okay, now we're going to plan the show, but make sure Wally, new husband, takes over. He'd never done anything showbiz before, so naturally we tried to help him. But the director kept telling us that he was in charge and he needed to be doing the planning. I caught a moment of a personal interview as well. Honest answers, but very much being steered by the camera crew and director. During the show, the crew said they needed to get sound levels, so they had people sit quietly, clap politely, clap loudly, etc. I'm fairly certain that was so they could have clips showing a range of responses. In the end, the whole show bit got about 4 seconds of time on screen. Waste of 2 days. No pay.
My sister's friend's family was on House Hunters several years ago, and everything about it was staged. They had already decided on the house before the show even started filming, and other 2 options that the couple was considering were found afterwards. They filmed a bunch of fake conversations between the family members to make it seem like they were still making up their minds. The thing is, this was a Latino family, and every member struggled heavily with English. The conversation scenes were obviously forced, as these people were just stumbling their way through scripted English sentences, and it was obvious that they would have been having the conversation in Spanish if they were on their own. The issue was so bad that I'm surprised they even aired the episode.
Not me, but my best friend was on 16 and pregnant. Now I don't know if this is always the case, but none of the drama on her episode was fabricated. However, at one point, they did ask her to reenact a conversation that she had had with her mother off camera. The funny part is, they had her reenacted about a week after giving birth, so she was no longer pregnant. To hide that, she wore a big sweatshirt and held a teddy bear in front of her tummy so you couldn't tell the difference. Edit. I've been getting a lot of questions from the good people over at our Teen Mum, and to be honest, I just don't feel comfortable divulging my friend's personal information in exchange for fake internet points. I've said just about as much as I'm willing to say without her permission. Maybe one day she'll do an AMA herself for you guys, but I don't feel comfortable doing it on her behalf.
I have several friends that were on the first season of Moonshiner, Discovery Channel. It is totally fake. I mean, they do make moonshine, but what you see on the show is not what it's like in real life. Most of them are licensed to sell alcohol, and do sell it locally at the package stores. The others only make a little to have for themselves and a few friends, more to keep up a family tradition than anything else. But the producers had them set up stills in the woods, and even told them what to wear to make it look more backwoods, redneck, good old boys than anybody in this area has looked in 50 years. Most of us sat there, with the guys that were being filmed, watching the episodes and laughing at all the people that probably think this stuff is real, while drinking store-bought beer. The hard stuff is only for rare occasions *, it'll rot your gut if you drink it all the time. *Rare occasions equals Saturday nights.
I was on set for a filming Go Ghost Hunters in Buffalo. On the show, they are investigating an upper level of the Buffalo Central Terminal when they hear a disembodied voice say, "Get out." It was the property manager on a lower level yelling at some homeless people to clear out. Everyone knew it was him, but it somehow made it in the show as an unexplained event.
While at a bar in NYC, someone approached my dad and his buddy asking if they wanted to be on a gourmet cooking show. Naturally, they agreed and asked if I, 14Y0 at the time, could join. The promoter said of course, gave them the location, and told them to tell me not to eat a big lunch as this would be a large multi-course meal at an upscale restaurant. I skipped lunch that day after a rough lunchtime soccer match, and left school early to meet my father and his friend. We arrived in a strange part of Manhattan, near the Hudson, in a rather dead part of the city. We got a call from the producer saying, "Sorry man. Wrong location. We're sending a car to pick you up immediately." We hopped into a taxi and, boom, you're on Cash Cab. The bald-headed host declared as lights flashed above our heads. So, we lost, got kicked out in Chelsea, and ended up spending our own money on food and a taxi home. Very upsetting, sad face.
Consider subscribing.